Imagine a world where the sky never weeps, where clouds gather, storms rage, thunder echoes across the land, but no rain ever falls. Imagine a planet where, from the very beginning, rain simply did not exist. No showers to soak the soil, no monsoons to fill the rivers, no gentle drizzle to cool the air. This world is still Earth, still home to oceans and winds and continents, but without rain, everything is transformed. To imagine such a world is to strip away the very foundations of the life we know, to rebuild history from the ground up, to picture humanity surviving in conditions we can scarcely comprehend. This is not a story about what would happen if rain suddenly stopped tomorrow. It is not a thought experiment about drought or climate change as we know them. This is a journey into an Earth where rain never existed in the first place, a place where human civilization, if it could even arise, would be born into a reality defined by permanent scarcity, by struggle, and by an unrelenting dependence on the oceans that lap against the coasts. The oceans would still exist because their origins do not depend on rain. They come from icy comets crashing into the young Earth, from water locked in minerals and released by volcanic eruptions, from the violent chemistry of a new planet. The seas would still spread across the surface, covering much of the globe in blue. But they would remain confined, cut off from the land. On our Earth, rain is the bridge between sea and soil. The sun lifts water into the air, and rain returns it to the earth, filling rivers, lakes, and aquifers, feeding plants, and nourishing life. Without rain, that bridge never forms. Oceans remain oceans. Water vapor rises into the sky but never falls. It lingers, disperses, sometimes forming fog and dew along coastlines, but never spreading across the continents. Seen from orbit, this alternate Earth would look eerily alien. The oceans still shimmer, but the continents are vast expanses of brown and gold. Instead of forests and grasslands, deserts dominate, stretching unbroken from shore to shore. The interiors of continents are lifeless, barren wastelands. The Amazon rainforest never exists. The African savannas never take shape. North America's Great Plains are nothing but dunes and rock. Only narrow fringes of green cling to the edges of continents, where sea mist condenses on cool mornings, or where glaciers drip streams of meltwater. The skies above are deceptive. Clouds still form, massive towers of vapor rising from the seas. They darken, they churn, they spark with lightning, but they never deliver rain. Imagine standing under a thunderstorm that rumbles for hours, thunder rolling across the horizon, lightning flashing, and not a single drop ever touches the ground. That is the reality of every storm in this rainless world. Life would still find a way, because life is stubborn. In the oceans, evolution would proceed much as it did on our Earth. Microbes would bloom, algae would spread, fish would dart through the currents, and invertebrates would crawl across the seafloor. The seas would be the womb of existence, but also its prison. On our Earth, amphibians crawled from rain-fed ponds and lakes, bridging the gap between sea and land. Here, those ponds never form. Without rain, freshwater ecosystems are almost non-existent. A few pools appear from melting glaciers or from groundwater bubbling up in springs, but they are rare, fragile, and short-lived. Without replenishment, they dry quickly, leaving only salt and dust behind. Evolutionary experiments that depend on these pools, frogs, salamanders, freshwater fish, never occur. Life on land is stunted, limited to narrow coastal zones where fog and mist provide just enough moisture for plants to cling on. Imagine the landscapes of this world. Along the coasts, hardy plants adapted to fog-fed ecosystems survive. Mosses, lichens, and scrubby shrubs draw moisture directly from the air, much like the plants of the Atacama Desert in our world. These belts of green are fragile, narrow, and temporary, constantly shifting with the climate. Inland, deserts stretch endlessly, empty and silent. There are no great forests, no rolling grasslands, no wetlands teeming with life. The continents are seas of sand and stone, punctuated only by coastal fringes of green. If you walked inland from one of these belts, within a few days you would leave all life behind and step into a landscape as lifeless as Mars. Humanity, if it ever appeared, would never stray far from the margins of the sea. And yet, against the odds, humans do appear. Somewhere in a fog-fed grove, small primates cling to survival, feeding on fruits and insects, drinking dew from leaves. Over millions of years, they evolve intelligence, tool use, and cooperation, just as they did in our world. But they are shaped by scarcity from the very beginning. Their bodies are smaller, leaner, designed to conserve water. Their kidneys are stronger, capable of reclaiming more moisture. Their sweat glands are fewer, conserving every drop. Thick skin protects them from dry winds and scorching sun. These adaptations make them desert survivors, coastal foragers, creatures of fog and sea spray. Their lives are bound to water, and water is bound to fog. Each morning, families rise before dawn to spread nets woven from plant fibers, stretching them across ridges and cliffs to catch the mist that rolls in from the ocean. Droplets collect on the strands, dripping slowly into jars below. Children are taught from their earliest days to handle these jars with care, for a single clumsy spill can mean days of thirst. Entire villages are built around these fog nets, with homes arranged to channel dew into cisterns. Roofs are steep and slanted, walls rough-textured, every surface designed to coax water from the air. At night, the village sleeps beneath the sound of dripping, and each drop is treated as treasure. Food comes from the sea. Fishing is the backbone of survival, with nets cast from rocky shores, hooks carved from bone, and boats lashed together from driftwood and reeds. Seaweed is harvested, dried, and stored for lean times. Mussels, clams, and crabs are pried from rocks. Meat from land animals is rare, for inland animals are scarce, and domestication is nearly impossible without grass or grazing fields. Perhaps seabirds are encouraged to nest near villages, their eggs collected carefully, or seals are hunted in small numbers. But the great herds that sustained human civilizations on our Earth, cattle, sheep, goats, and horses, never exist. Humanity is bound to the sea not just for water, but for food, clothing, and tools. Clothing itself reflects the environment. Wool and cotton are unknown. Instead, fibers are spun from sea plants, from sinew, from hides of seals or small mammals. Kelp is dried and woven into mats. Leather is precious, reserved for tools or water skins. Nothing is wasted, because everything is scarce. Houses are built from stone, seaweed, and bone, plastered with mud where possible, but always designed with water collection in mind. Villages cluster along foggy coasts, their layout determined not by defense or beauty, but by airflow and condensation. Society is shaped by scarcity. On our Earth, abundance allowed individualism, competition, and luxury. In this world, selfishness is deadly. A family that hoards water endangers the entire village. Communities develop strict codes of sharing, enforced by custom, law, and necessity. Water is stored communally in cisterns, guarded like treasure, distributed by trusted elders or leaders. Generosity is not just virtue but survival, and greed is punished harshly. To spill water without reason is sacrilege, and those who waste it may be exiled, cast into the desert to die. In such a world, cooperation is not optional. It is the foundation of every society. Religion grows naturally from this dependence. In our world, countless cultures prayed for rain, danced to bring storms, and worshipped gods of thunder and flood. In this world, such rituals never exist. Instead, fog is sacred. Each dawn, as the mist rolls in, villagers gather in silence to watch droplets form on nets, a daily miracle. Priests chant as water drips into jars, blessing the bounty of the fog. Glaciers are holy places, mountains of ice revered as divine reservoirs. Pilgrimages are made to their edges, where believers drink meltwater directly from the streams, treating each sip as communion. When glaciers retreat, communities grieve as though gods have died. Myths tell of heroes who discovered new fog banks, who invented better nets, who led their people to survival in times of drought. Trickster figures are those who waste water or steal from communal stores, embodiments of chaos and destruction. Art reflects the centrality of water. Carvings depict droplets forming on leaves, waves crashing against rocks, fog rolling over cliffs. Music imitates the rhythm of dripping water, the sigh of wind through nets, the crash of surf on the shore. Temples are crowned with great fog-catching nets, so that worship and survival are one and the same. Writing, if it develops, is etched into shells, carved into bone, or inscribed on dried kelp because forests are absent and wood is rare. Every aspect of culture is shaped by the absence of rain, by the daily struggle to coax life from the air. Civilization does emerge, but it is fragmented and coastal. There are no vast inland empires, no river valleys feeding millions, no Silk Roads connecting continents. Instead, humanity clusters in city-states strung along shorelines, beads on a necklace linked by the sea. Ships become the highways of civilization, carrying goods, people, and knowledge from port to port. Trade is maritime, not overland. A city in Peru trades fish and kelp with a city in Japan, while the deserts in between remain untraveled, uninhabitable voids. Empires stretch along coasts, fragile and thin, vulnerable to storms at sea and the unyielding deserts behind them. Warfare is inevitable, but it is fought not over fertile fields, but over water. A single bay where fog condenses heavily can be worth 1,000 lives. A single glacier that feeds a seasonal stream can spark generations of conflict. Victories are measured in captured cisterns, in seized fog nets, in springs taken from rivals. The most powerful cities are not those with the largest armies, but those with the best access to fog and ice. In such a world, the politics of water replaces the politics of land. Kings and chiefs rule not because they own acres of soil, but because they control the flow of dew into their cities. Technology advances in strange directions. Desalination, something our world discovered only recently, may be invented thousands of years earlier. Desperate for water, early humans learned to boil seawater and capture the steam on cool surfaces, collecting fresh drops. These crude stills become as essential as fire. Over time, they grow larger and more efficient until great communal desalination chambers stand at the centers of cities, fountains of life for entire populations. Aqueducts are built not to carry river water, but to channel fog-caught dew from high ridges into towns. Cisterns are carved into stone, sealed with clay, guarded with spears. Science develops not around stars or philosophy, but around hydrology. The greatest minds are not poets or warriors, but water engineers. Population is forever limited. Without vast inland farms, humanity cannot reach billions. Even with advanced technology, perhaps only a few 100 million survive across the globe. Communities are smaller, cultures more diverse, languages more fragmented, because each coastal enclave develops in isolation. Deserts act as barriers greater than oceans, cutting people off from one another. Yet despite these limitations, humanity thrives in its own way. Each culture is shaped by its environment. Each community finds joy in survival. Each generation carries forward the knowledge that every drop of water is sacred. As centuries pass, these coastal civilizations adapt further to the realities of a rainless world. Their cultures are shaped by cycles of fog, by the rhythms of glaciers, by the constant vigilance of watching the sky not for storms, but for mist. A year with heavy fog is a year of abundance, when water jars are filled, when communities celebrate, when trade flourishes. A year with thin fog, when nets drip slowly and jars remain light, is a year of hunger, conflict, and despair. People grow up knowing that their survival depends not only on their own work, but on forces they cannot control, forces that drift in silently from the sea each morning and vanish by midday. Inland travel remains impossible. A caravan that dares to cross the deserts dies within days. There are no inland roads, no overland empires, no conquest of continents. Humanity remains a species of sailors, a people bound to the sea. Ships improve over generations, from rafts of reeds to sturdy vessels of wood gathered from rare coastal forests. Navigation is studied with religious devotion. The stars are charted, winds are cataloged, and ocean currents are mapped. The sea becomes the great highway of humanity, linking distant cultures in ways that deserts never could. A person in South America may know of cities in Asia centuries before anyone dares to walk inland. Trade routes stretch across oceans, carrying dried fish, seaweed, salt, and tools. Deserts isolate, but the sea unites. Yet even with ships, humanity remains small. Villages cluster where fog is thickest. Towns rise where glaciers drip, but cities struggle to grow beyond a certain size. Without farms to feed them, populations are limited. A settlement of more than 50,000 is rare, almost miraculous. Great metropolises like our New York, Tokyo, or Cairo are unimaginable. Instead, humanity spreads out as a patchwork of small enclaves, scattered along coasts, each self-sufficient yet vulnerable. No single empire can dominate the world because no empire can extend beyond its fragile water sources. Power is fleeting, constantly shifting with the climate. A city that thrives for a century can vanish within a generation if fog thins or glaciers retreat. History in this world is a story of rise and collapse, of fragile triumphs undone by changes in mist and ice. Everyday life reflects this fragility. Families live in small stone houses with sloping roofs, carefully plastered with clay to guide dew into cisterns. Nets stretch across hillsides, maintained daily, repaired weekly, expanded when possible. Children grow up learning how to weave nets, how to position them for maximum catch, how to clean them without damaging fibers. A child's first rite of passage may not be hunting or farming, but successfully harvesting a jar of dew without spilling it. The ability to provide water for one's family is the first true mark of adulthood. Meals are modest but nourishing. Breakfast may be seaweed soup, boiled with shellfish and flavored with herbs grown in tiny irrigated gardens. Lunch is dried fish, chewy and salty. Eaten with kelp bread baked from ground algae mixed with water into dough. Dinner is another variation of fish or shellfish, perhaps with berries grown in fog-fed groves. Meat is rare, saved for ceremonies. Eggs from seabirds are a delicacy, shared communally on holidays. Oil from fish or seals provides fat, burned in lamps to light homes after sunset. Nothing is wasted. Bones are carved into tools, hides into clothing, shells into cups and spoons. Refuse is composted into the tiny gardens that cling stubbornly to the edges of homes. Every scrap is used because survival demands it. Health is precarious. Without rain, epidemics are less common, for stagnant freshwater pools that breed mosquitoes do not exist. But dehydration is a constant threat. Children are especially vulnerable, and infant mortality is high. Entire families may perish in years when fog is thin. Healers work with what they have: seaweed poultices, fish oils, saltwater baths, and above all, careful rationing of water. A healer's greatest skill is not in herbs but in judgment, deciding who receives water and how much. Compassion must be balanced with practicality, for in this world, saving one life by giving too much water may doom several others. Religion remains the glue that binds society. Each community venerates fog as divine. Priests lead ceremonies at dawn, raising their arms to the mist, chanting as droplets form on nets and drip into waiting jars. The act of catching water is sacred, and every morning is a ritual. Glaciers are worshipped as gods of stone and ice, eternal guardians of life. Pilgrimages to glaciers are dangerous, but they are made nonetheless, with pilgrims carrying jars to collect meltwater as holy relics. Myths tell of ancient heroes who stole fire from the sea, who tamed fog with nets, who taught humanity to boil seawater into drinkable drops. Trickster figures are remembered in stories of those who wasted water, who laughed as jars spilled, who were punished by exile into the desert. Children grow up not only fearing thirst but fearing shame, taught that to waste water is not just careless but evil. Art continues to reflect this world of scarcity. Songs imitate the rhythm of dripping water, the crash of waves, the sigh of wind through nets. Dances are performed at dawn, bodies swaying like mist drifting across a hillside. Carvings depict droplets forming on leaves, fog rolling across cliffs, glaciers glowing in the sun. Temples are crowned with vast nets, sacred and functional, catching water for both worship and survival. To enter a temple is to step beneath the largest net in the community, to drink from the holiest jar. Faith and survival are one. Technology grows in directions shaped by necessity. Fire is discovered and used much as in our world, but early on it is harnessed for boiling seawater. Desalination becomes as ancient as cooking. Clay pots with lids are placed over flames, seawater inside. As the pot heats, vapor rises and condenses on the lid, dripping into another container. Crude, inefficient, but life-saving. Over generations, the process improves. By the time our Earth saw the rise of pyramids, this world may already have vast communal desalination halls, enormous stone chambers with channels for vapor and pipes for condensed drops. Engineers are revered, their names remembered like kings. The greatest monuments are not tombs or palaces, but cisterns, desalination halls, and fog towers. Civilizations compete not in building tallest statues, but in catching the most water. Trade develops along the coasts. Ships carry dried fish, seaweed, oils, and shells across oceans. Knowledge spreads with them. New designs for nets, new techniques for boiling water, new myths and songs. But no trade routes cross the continents. The deserts are too vast, too deadly. A ship may sail across the Pacific before a caravan crosses the Sahara. Humanity becomes a maritime species, its history written on the waves. Exploration leaps ahead in some ways. Star charts are developed early, compasses perhaps discovered long before in our world. Sailors memorize the behavior of winds, the paths of currents, the cycles of tides. The oceans unite where land divides. Civilizations rise not around river valleys, but around harbors. The greatest cities are ports, hubs of trade and culture, standing proudly on shores while the interiors behind them remain barren. War, when it comes, is brutal. Armies march not across plains but along narrow strips of coast, raiding rival villages, seizing cisterns, burning fog nets. A single destroyed net can doom a settlement. A captured glacier stream can change the fate of thousands. Cities rise and fall with their access to water. Empires crumble when ice retreats or fog thins. Victory is measured not in acres conquered, but in jars filled. Even naval battles are fought with water as the ultimate prize. Ships carrying stolen cisterns back to their ports, sailors spilling more blood than water in the struggle for survival. And yet, for all its harshness, this world produces resilience, creativity, and determination. People learn to endure, to celebrate life even when it is fragile. Festivals mark the thickest fogs when nets drip abundantly and jars overflow. Families feast, sing, and dance, rejoicing in the rare abundance. In these moments, laughter echoes across the coast, reminding humanity that even in a world of scarcity, joy is possible. As centuries pass, technology advances. Metals are mined along coastlines, forged into stronger nets, better tools, sturdier ships. Stone aqueducts carry water from fog towers to distant neighborhoods. Wind power is harnessed to grind seaweed into flour, to pump seawater into desalination halls. The first engines burn fish oil and driftwood, powering machines that increase water production. Industrialization, when it comes, is driven not by coal or factories, but by the desperate need for more water. Great desalination plants rise along shores, roaring furnaces boiling seawater in endless cycles, steam hissing, condensation dripping. Cities glow at night with lamps fueled by fish oil, their streets echoing with the hiss of desalination chambers. Population grows but remains limited. Perhaps hundreds of millions live on the planet at once, never billions. Each life depends on the thin balance of fog, ice, and technology. The deserts remain vast and empty, forbidding expansion. Humanity never builds megacities inland, never covers continents with highways. Instead, it thrives in coastal belts, thin ribbons of civilization hugging oceans, glowing like necklaces of light from space. In time, humanity looks upward. Starvation and thirst have taught them ingenuity, resilience, and the drive to find new frontiers. Perhaps in this world, space exploration begins earlier, fueled by the same need for survival that drove desalination. Rockets rise not from empires fattened on rain-fed crops, but from lean coastal societies desperate to escape their fragile existence. If they can leave Earth, perhaps they can find worlds where water flows more freely, where rain does fall, where life is not a daily battle against thirst. In that way, the very absence of rain may push them beyond the skies sooner than in our history, because they know what it means to live on the edge of extinction, and they dream of a world where water is abundant. But still, the image of this Earth is stark. From orbit, it is blue and brown, oceans shimmering, continents barren. From the ground, it is harsh, with narrow belts of life pressed between sea and desert. From within its civilizations, it is fragile but vibrant, filled with people who endure, who sing, who pray to fog and ice, who live each day in awe of the droplets that keep them alive. It is a world of scarcity, but also of resilience. A world where humanity survives not because the sky is generous, but because they have learned to make life from the smallest gifts. And so, the next time rain falls on our Earth, the next time you hear it tapping against your window or smell the sweet scent of wet soil, remember how extraordinary it truly is. Rain is not an annoyance, not an inconvenience. It is the silent architect of civilization, the invisible foundation of our existence. Without it, Earth would be a harsher, emptier place. Without it, humanity would be a fragile species clinging to coastlines, forever chasing fog. Rain is not just water. It is life, history, culture, and the reason we are here at all. This has been Epic Explorations. Until next time, stay curious.